Ever get a course of antibiotics and wonder, are these things even working?
Hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
today's deep dive might just make you question those little pills even more. We're taking a ride into the unexpected world of tire particles.
Tire particles. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know those bits of rubber we leave on the road every day?
Yeah.
Turns out they could be playing a role in making antibiotics less effective.
It might sound strange, I know,
Yeah.
but those tire particles we leave on the road every day could be playing a role in making antibiotics less effective.
Okay. So, back up for a second. You're talking about, like, tire wear particles, right?
Right.
The stuff that comes off our tires when we drive.
Exactly.
I'll admit, I always thought that just, like, washed away.
You're not alone. Many people think that. But some fascinating research from Science Direct reveals those tiny particles aren't as harmless as they seem, especially when they end up in our lakes and rivers. Yeah, turns out they can act as breeding grounds for bacteria, and not just any bacteria.
So, instead of thinking about plastic bottles floating on the surface,
Yeah.
this is about microscopic pieces of tire
Yeah.
becoming havens for microbes.
Precisely. The study found that these tire wear particles, or TWPs, are quickly colonized by bacteria, forming what are called biofilms on their surfaces.
Biofilms, okay. That sounds a little more technical than like microbial hotels, you know.
Right.
What are those exactly?
Imagine a bustling city, but for bacteria.
Okay.
These biofilms are like a complex community of different bacteria all living together on the surface of the tire particles. And here's where things get really interesting and a bit concerning.
This is the part where I start to regret that last cheeseburger, isn't it?
Right.
What happens in these bacterial cities?
Because the bacteria are crammed so closely together, they have the perfect opportunity to swap genes with each other.
Yeah.
This process is called horizontal gene transfer, or HGT,
Okay.
and this is how antibiotic resistance can spread.
Wait, so bacteria can just trade genes like that? How does that even work?
It's a bit different from how humans pass down genes, right?
Right.
Bacteria have this amazing ability to share genetic material directly with each other.
Wow.
It's as if these tire particles are creating a kind of black market where bacteria can trade dangerous weapons. In this case, genes that make them resistant to the drugs we rely on.
Okay.
And the more they share, the quicker the resistance spreads.
That's a lot to unpack. So, just to be clear, you're saying these tiny tire particles are acting as a meeting place,
Yeah.
a marketplace for bacteria to trade antibiotic resistance.
In a nutshell, yes.
Huh.
But it gets even more complicated than that. The Science Direct study also found that the metals present in tires can actually enhance the rate of this gene swapping.
The metals in the tires themselves,
Yes.
like the steel belts and stuff?
Exactly. It seems those metals, while essential for the tire structure, can inadvertently create an environment where bacteria with antibiotic resistance genes are more likely to thrive and pass those genes on to their neighbors.
So it's not just the tire particles, but what they're made of
Yes.
that's contributing to the problem.
Exactly.
That's wild. But wouldn't those metals eventually rust away in the water?
That's a great question, and it's something scientists are still investigating. It seems the process of degradation and the release of metals might actually be part of what makes this environment so conducive to bacterial growth and gene swapping.
This is blowing my mind. It's like we're creating mini bioweapons factories every time we drive.
Yeah, that's a little unnerving when you think about it that way.
But okay, so we've got these tire particles full of metals acting as hotspots for bacteria to trade resistance genes. Did the researchers find anything else in the study? Or is that the bad news for today?
Well, there's another layer to this, and it might make you want to turn the thermostat down a notch.
Oh no, please don't tell me climate change makes this worse too.
Unfortunately, that seems to be the case. The researchers found that as water temperatures rise, the rate of this gene swapping in tile particle biofilms increases significantly.
So it's like a double whammy. More tire particles from more cars on the road, A&D, warmer waters from climate change, both contribute to more superbugs.
It seems like it, yeah.
This is starting to feel like one of those dystopian sci-fi movies.
It's a concerning scenario, and it highlights how interconnected these environmental challenges are. Remember how we talked about bacteria thriving in those metal-rich environments? Well, warmer temperatures can actually accelerate the release of those metals from the tire particles.
So we're not just talking about bacteria growing faster in warmer water,
Right.
but the water itself becoming a more potent breeding ground for resistance because of those metals.
That's the gist of it. It's a complex interplay of factors. But the takeaway is that warmer temperatures could create a perfect storm for the spread of antibiotic resistance in these tire particle hotspots.
This is a lot to process. We've got these tire particles, which most people don't even realize are a problem,
Yeah.
creating havens for bacteria to swap resistance genes, and climate change is just going to make it all worse.
A lot to take in.
It feels like a losing battle.
It's understandable to feel that way, but remember, knowledge is power. Understanding the problem is the first step towards finding solutions.
Okay, that makes sense. So what are we doing about this? Are there ways to tackle this tire particle issue? I mean, people aren't going to stop driving their cars anytime soon.
You're right, there's no stopping the need for transportation. But this research is a call to action. There are a few promising avenues researchers are exploring. One is trying to capture these tire particles before they even reach our waterways.
Like some kind of tire particle filter. Do they make those?
Not for our cars, not yet anyway, but think bigger picture. Specially designed street sweeping technologies, filters installed on storm drains, even permeable pavements that can trap those particles right at the source.
Permeable pavements, those are the ones that let rainwater soak through, right?
Exactly.
I can see how that would help.
Yeah.
What are the downsides to these solutions?
Well, cost is a big one. Implementing these technologies on a large scale would require significant investment.
Sure.
There are also technical challenges to consider, like ensuring the filters are effective and don't get clogged too quickly.
Those are valid points. It
Yeah.
sounds like we're still in the early stages of finding a practical solution.
We are, yeah.
What about tackling the antibiotic resistance part of this? That feels like an even bigger beast to wrangle.
You're not wrong. Antibiotic resistance is a complex challenge with no easy answers. However, this research underscores the urgency of reducing our reliance on antibiotics in the first place.
I see what you mean. It's like if we're constantly using antibiotics, we're just giving those bacteria more opportunities to evolve resistance.
Right.
And these tire particles are making it even easier for them to share those resistance genes.
Exactly.
It's a vicious cycle.
Exactly. It's about addressing the issue from multiple angles. Reducing unnecessary antibiotic use, developing new antimicrobial therapies, and finding ways to mitigate the spread of resistance genes are all crucial pieces of the puzzle.
So this isn't just about scientists in a lab somewhere.
Go ahead.
It's about all of us doing our part.
Absolutely.
What can the average person do to make a difference here? Besides, never driving again.
Driving less is a great start if you can swing it, but even small changes to our driving habits can have an impact. Avoiding hard braking and accelerating, for example, can minimize tire wear.
And making sure your tires are properly inflated. That's an easy one, too.
It is.
I'm definitely guilty of forgetting about that one.
Yeah, it's something we often overlook, but it can make a difference.
Right.
And beyond our driving habits, staying informed about these issues and supporting policies that promote responsible antibiotic use and environmental protection can have a ripple effect.
It's a good reminder that even small actions can add up, especially when we're talking about a global challenge like antibiotic resistance. But I have to admit, it's pretty unsettling to think about those tiny tire particles having such a big impact.
Yeah, it really underscores how much we still have to learn about the hidden consequences of our actions. This research has opened up a whole new avenue of inquiry.
So what's next? What are the big questions scientists are tackling now?
One of the most pressing is the long-term impact of tire particles on aquatic ecosystems. We've seen how they can create these hotspots for antibiotic resistance.
Right.
But what does that mean for the health of fish populations, for example, or for water quality as a whole?
Yeah, it's like that old saying, we're all downstream from something.
Yeah.
And it's not just the tire particles themselves, right?
Right.
Don't tires contain all sorts of chemicals that could be leaching out into the water?
Absolutely. Tire wear particles are like little rafts carrying a cocktail of chemicals. Metals, zinc, petroleum products, you name it. Researchers are trying to understand how these chemicals might be impacting aquatic life and potentially moving up the food chain.
Moving up the food chain. So you're saying these tire particles and all the nasty stuff they're carrying could end up on our dinner plates.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's called bioaccumulation, the process of toxins building up in animals higher up the food chain.
Right.
And since we humans sit at the top of that chain, it's a very real concern.
Okay. Now I'm officially losing my appetite. But seriously, this is a lot to take in. We started with tire particles, and now we're talking about contaminated seafood. It feels like a problem with no easy answers.
You're right, there are no quick fixes. But this research has shone a light on a hidden threat, and that's a crucial first step. The more we understand about the unintended consequences of our actions, the better equipped we'll be to make informed choices.
So what's the takeaway here? What do you hope listeners will remember from this deep dive?
I think it boils down to this. Even something as seemingly insignificant as tire dust can have a ripple effect on the world around us. It's a call to action for all of us to be more aware of our impact on the environment and to support research and innovation that can lead to a healthier planet.
Well said. A huge thank you to you for taking us on this eye-opening journey into the unexpected world of tire particles and antibiotic resistance. It's been a wild ride.
The pleasure was all mine.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic you probably didn't know you should be thinking about. Until then, stay curious.